Okay, so my first video regarding Momoshiki and Isshiki did great, so I wanted to make a follow-up to it. Not only did you guys like it, but I have plenty more I want to cover on these two Otsutsuki before we finally get their backstories revealed in the future of Boruto 2 Blue Vortex. So for starters, even though Isshiki died and his story ended at part 1 of Boruto, I do believe indeed that he will return to the story at some point. Isshiki left his karma onto Kawaki before he perished, and even though he failed to mark Kawaki again because of Kawaki outsmarting him with the Shadow Clone Jutsu, the karma that Jigen/Isshiki placed on him beforehand had already extracted to about 80%, meaning that even though Isshiki died, Kawaki is still and will always be Ishiki's vessel. We still don't currently know in 2 Blue Vortex his backstory, or Momoshiki's for that matter. And for everyone saying that Isshiki's role in the story is done, you couldn't be further from wrong. Isshiki is just as important to the story as Kawaki, because the power that Kawaki so desperately clings to is the power of Isshiki Otsutsuki. Without the karma, Kawaki is nothing, and that is the sad reality that Jigen had instilled into Kawaki during his time with Kara. In Chapter 6 of 2 Blue Vortex, we know that Boruto thinks that the essence of the white karma is what caused the Shinju to already begin to evolve into the divine trees without already having eaten an Otsutsuki. We know the white karma seal comes from Isshiki, and even though there are theories pointing to Amado creating and implanting the white karma onto Code, the karma itself is still derived from the Otsutsuki. So Isshiki trying to implant and failing to apply a karma and instead applying a white karma isn't out of the realm of possibility, because Isshiki is a genuine Otsutsuki. So a failed karma being made isn't impossible, and could be a mechanic applied to the story. The fact of the matter is that Isshiki is a genuine Otsutsuki who has applied Kawaki Uzumaki with his karma seal. So all of the power Kawaki receives comes from Isshiki. I understand Kawaki is also a cyborg and has amps because of that, but because of how this is portrayed in the Boruto series, Kawaki, even though he's a cyborg, is still seen as getting manhandled by the likes of Shinki in Boruto Part 1, and recently getting briefly overwhelmed by the Claw Grimes and knocked off guard by Mitsuki in 2 Blue Vortex. Not to mention as recently as Chapter 9, Boruto calling Kawaki pathetic and punching him in his chest for not training properly. Now Mitsuki by no means is a weak opponent, but my point is it's sad that Kawaki, who has a natural amp due to being a living scientific ninja tool / cyborg, needs to rely on the karma despite being a weapon himself. From Isshiki's karma seal, Kawaki has also inherited Isshiki's unique Dojutsu, but Kawaki displays this unique Dojutsu in his left eye rather than his right eye like Isshiki. As for the reasoning for this, I have two theories. Either Kawaki was born with Shibai's genetics like Boruto and Isshiki hit the jackpot like Momoshiki, or Isshiki awakened this unique Dojutsu in both of his eyes, and the fact he didn't get resurrected at full power was the best outcome for everyone. If you read my Chapter 9 review of 2 Blue Vortex, you know I've said that Amado may potentially be limiting Kawaki's power through his cybernetics due to Amado trying to manipulate Kawaki. So this could be Amado limiting Kawaki's power as to not have the Dojutsu unique to Isshiki in both of his eyes, rather just his left eye and not his right eye like Isshiki. So how did I come to both of these conclusions? You're probably asking that to yourself right now. But just sit tight, I'm going to explain both of these theories starting with the first one. So if Kawaki really did inherit Shibai's genes naturally, then this could make sense for the story, because in Chapter 75 of Boruto Part 1, when Amado is explaining to everyone about Shibai Otsutsuki, when Shibai is depicted, we see that he has Isshiki's Dojutsu in his left eye. So if this Dojutsu originated from Shibai, Kawaki having it in his left eye instead of his right eye like Isshiki could mean that Kawaki naturally possesses a certain amount of Shibai's DNA, and when Isshiki etched his karma onto Kawaki, the karma likely empowered the cells of Shibai that were already present in Kawaki, and the cells of Shibai could have been the dominant genes in the new makeup of Kawaki's Otsutsukification. resulting in the unnamed Dojutsu appearing in Kawaki's left eye like Shibai, and not his right eye like Isshiki. My second theory is that Isshiki had this unnamed Dojutsu in both of his eyes, and I think we saw it in his right eye because, as we know, when Isshiki was resurrected in part 1, he resurrected through Jigen and not Kawaki. Jigen was an imperfect vessel, so it could have been a case to where Jigen couldn't harness the full power of the unnamed Dojutsu. And this is most likely true because, unlike Kawaki, Jigen could only manifest 2 spokes of the unnamed Dojutsu rather than the full 8. We learned from Madara Uchiha that having both eyes of the Dojutsu will result in their full power, as we saw with Obito and Kakashi when they worked together in the war, and they both used their Sharingan. And when Madara finally got his Rinnegan back from Obito and briefly had both of his Rinnegan. Dojutsu operate at peak power with both eyes, so if Isshiki really had both eyes at full power, it would have meant that Kawaki has gotten stronger over the time skip, as he's advanced the Dojutsu to its maximum 8 spokes. But if my theory holds true, then Kawaki can unlock the Dojutsu in his right eye as well down the line in the story. I've given each theory some thought, and each could come to pass, but I lean more towards the first theory because Boruto has Shibai's genetics, as well as Shibai was shown to have the Jogan in his right eye, just like Boruto, though it could have just been a Byakugan. We're not, or it hasn't been confirmed yet. But if Shibai's eye is truly a Jogan, then that means Boruto and Kawaki are each half of Shibai, just like how Naruto and Sasuke each had half of the Sage's power. Naruto had the Sage's body, and Sasuke had the Sage's eyes. Boruto will inherit one side of Shibai, and Kawaki will inherit the other side. In Chapter 9 of Two Blue Vortex, we once again witness the resonance of Boruto and Kawaki's karmas, and we learn in Boruto Part 1 that the resonance between 2 karmas speeds up the Otsutsukification process. But is this the case for all karmas? Or does the reason run deeper? We can all agree that Momoshiki was most likely pampered by the Otsutsuki clan because Kinshiki stated that he was Momoshiki's guardian, meaning Momoshiki had high ranking in the Otsutsuki clan, but I believe the opposite of Isshiki. Now, in my own opinion, Isshiki is the Neji of the Otsutsuki clan. What do I mean by that, you ask? Well, I'll explain. Based on how I view the series, Isshiki got everything out the mud. He worked for his status and his unrivaled power. I say that because we learned in Boruto Part 1 from Amado that Isshiki was betrayed and bisected by Kaguya. Because of this, Isshiki had to take over Jigen's body and live in his brain as a parasite. But one scene from Boruto Part 1 really stuck with me. Isshiki, through Jigen, purchased Kawaki from his biological father, rather than taking Kawaki by force. Isshiki/Jigen had the power to take Kawaki by force. I don't think anybody's disagreeing with that. Yet he purchased Kawaki instead of taking him by force. This tells me that Isshiki has learned human nature, and despite being an Otsutsuki, he played by the humans' rules to attain his status. I have the utmost respect for Isshiki because of this. He's been on Earth for over 1,000 years through Jigen, and he could conquer the planet with his power, but he played by the rules and built himself up and his empire, Kara. I can't picture a scenario where Momoshiki would achieve anything close to what Isshiki has done, given that Momoshiki has been pampered by the clan his whole life. I say Isshiki is the Neji of the Otsutsuki clan because Neji was born from the side branch of the Hyuga, yet no one inherited the Byakugan more strongly than Neji. Neji even learned the 8 trigrams, 64 palms himself, not needing another higher ranking Hyuga to pass down the secrets of the technique to himself. Isshiki worked for his immense power, while Momoshiki had the power handed down to him without any hard work. This dynamic between Momoshiki and Isshiki is a tad ironic, because their respective vessels, who they have strong resonance with, are yet the same, yet completely the opposite. While Momoshiki has everything handed to him, Boruto at the start of the story had everything handed to him, and even cheated in the Chunin exam using a scientific ninja tool to beat Shinki. But Boruto learns he must trust in his own power and not an outside force like the karma, and thus Boruto became a hard worker, and we see the fruits of his labor at the beginning of Two Blue Vortex. And through Boruto's hard work, he was able to close the gap between himself and Code after he got his limiters lifted, and even dominated Code in battle, while Code amped himself with the white karma seal, and Boruto not needing to rely on his own karma seal at all. Kawaki, on the other hand, isn't a slouch. He worked his ass off under his training with Jigen, and became powerful in his own right with the karma, though after meeting Naruto and developing a bond with him, he tried relying on his own innate abilities, but in the end he clung to the power of the karma, and grieved for a while once he lost his immense power after Isshiki Otsutsuki's eventual demise. Amado later reconstructed Kawaki's karma with Akebi Sanzu's data inside for Kawaki to eventually place a karma into Delta to revive Akebi Sanzu, and Kawaki found himself grateful for Ishiki's power because he was able to save Naruto from Borushiki because of it. But my point that while Momoshiki doesn't work hard and hates hard work, his vessel Boruto trains hard and got his power out the mud. Meanwhile, Isshiki, much like Boruto, got his own power and status out the mud, but his vessel Kawaki doesn't like hard work and instead relies on the experience of Isshiki through the karma seal. Momoshiki and Isshiki both hit the lottery with their vessels, Momoshiki's vessel Boruto being a hard worker possessing strong Otsutsuki genetics with the Jogan on top of that, and Ishiki's vessel Kawaki potentially possessing strong Otsutsuki genetics, which hasn't been confirmed as of yet, it's just speculation, as well as being a living scientific ninja tool to house Ishiki's immense power. The two Otsutsuki could have probably attained more power than currently if they swapped vessels, but that's only a possibility or a theory at this point. Also, Momoshiki and Isshiki come from separate sides of the clan, going off of the Otsutsuki statues we see at the beginning of Boruto Part 1, shown in red and blue light respectively. It could mean that Momoshiki and Isshiki both inherited half of Shibai's godly power, which would put Boruto and Kawaki in the same shoes as Momoshiki and Isshiki, since Boruto and Kawaki inherited both of their powers, which is what I believe at this point. But saying I believe that, before I say I believe in that 100%, I want to remind you guys of chapter 35 of Boruto Part 1, where everything changed for the worse. Still, to this day, when Sasuke arrived at the Ten Tails dimension, we saw all of the Otsutsuki who arrived on Earth, but not the last two whose symbols were destroyed. Those two Otsutsuki most likely have some kind of connection to Shibai Otsutsuki, because Amado told Sasuke he led him there on purpose, so Sasuke could learn of the Ten Tails. But did Amado break those tablets of the missing Otsutsuki prior to handling the crashed airship and giving Sasuke the coordinates, and Sasuke eventually arriving at the dimension? Maybe Amado didn't break them himself, rather he had someone or one of the cyborgs do it. But why? I don't think those tablets were Shibai and his partner, because from what we saw, Shibai should be above Isshiki, meaning he should be placed higher, and Ishiki's tablet is placed the highest in the dimension. So just who are those two missing Otsutsuki, you ask? Well, Urashiki stated at the beginning of Boruto Part 1 that the Otsutsuki clan was aware of what Toneri did to Boruto and his previous actions in Naruto the Last. So why haven't the Otsutsuki clan made a move yet? It's been years, and now the God Tree or the Shinju has become sentient. So I believe the Otsutsuki clan will be shocked once they come to Earth and see that. Also, regarding what I said about Isshiki and Neji, I do believe that Isshiki is a lot like Neji as far as their heritage goes in the clan, the Hyuga clan and the Otsutsuki clan respectively. While Neji inherited stronger Hyuga blood than anyone else in the Hyuga clan, despite being a side branch member, I believe that Isshiki inherited stronger Otsutsuki potential than anyone in the Otsutsuki clan, other than Shibai, of course. But since Isshiki is most likely from the side branch of the Otsutsuki clan, he had to work twice as hard as Momoshiki would have ever had to work to attain his immense power. Momoshiki was also after Isshiki's 10 tails, as he stated once he took over Boruto and began to battle Code towards the end of Boruto Part 1. This goes to show that Momoshiki is intent on having others work for him or attaining the fruits of others' labor instead of working hard himself. Momoshiki's appearance in Two Blue Vortex will break the internet and shake up things drastically in the manga. Boruto has become extremely powerful and has shown to not even be in full control of his karma as of now. Boruto is so powerful, in fact, that if Momoshiki does possess him, it could be the end of the world as we know it, because there's no one on Boruto's level as of now, not including Jura or Damon, because we haven't seen either of their full extent of their powers as of yet. But Borushiki would almost certainly annihilate either, or make for a good fight. Kawaki isn't even in the discussion as of now, because currently he can't even deal with Boruto without his karma, so Borushiki will definitely defeat Kawaki with no effort as of now. In my previous video, I go over a theory on why Amado might be limiting Kawaki's power, and it actually makes a lot of sense. Amado is the one who reconstructed Kawaki's karma seal, and on top of Kawaki being a cyborg, it makes sense that he'd limit the amount of power Kawaki can access. In part 1 of Boruto, Amado stated Isshiki's power is immense, and that if Isshiki had revived in Kawaki's body instead of Jigen, it would result in the end of the world. Well, Kawaki got his reconstructed karma seal, and the fact that he doesn't have to worry about Isshiki possessing him due to Isshiki's soul being extinguished sounds too good to be true. There has to be some sort of drawback, but that's not what I'm getting at. In part 1 of Boruto, Momoshiki was afraid of Isshiki revived through Jigen, but even after he saw that Kawaki regained his karma and sprouted Ishiki's horn on top of that, Momoshiki was not afraid to battle Kawaki in the slightest. It's likely Momoshiki knew that Kawaki either couldn't control and use all of Ishiki's abilities, or that Kawaki didn't have time to truly know the full extent of Ishiki's powers through his karma. As I said in my Isshiki is the strongest video, Isshiki was not at full power when he revived through Jigen, even though he had a time limit. It's more like even though Isshiki reincarnated through the imperfect vessel Jigen, his power was still immense enough for no one to be a threat to him. I believe Momoshiki knows the full extent of Isshiki would be too much to hope to win against. And even while Isshiki fought Baryon Mode Naruto, he knew that Isshiki was still too powerful for him, which is why he didn't make a move until after Ishiki's soul perished, and even told Naruto, Sasuke, and Kawaki that he never thought they'd be able to take down Isshiki. Boruto has become extremely powerful since the time skip started, but Ishiki's full potential is still in another class, and Kawaki will need Amado to help him access Ishiki's true potential if he's going to even the scale with Boruto and eventually Borushiki. In Dragon Ball Z, we see that some androids are able to combine with others to become more powerful, as we see with Cell absorbing androids 17 and 18, or even android 13 absorbing androids 14 and 15. So there's a possibility Kawaki could absorb Code, or possibly even the Shinju for another power-up. But I do believe Kawaki doesn't have access to all of Ishiki's power as of yet in Two Blue Vortex. Also, it could be much like how Naruto didn't have access to all of Kurama's power until the Mount Miyaboku gave Naruto Minato's seal formula that Jiraiya left behind, which could control how much of Kurama's chakra was released from the seal. But what do you guys think? Will Isshiki return to the story? Does Kawaki not have access to all of Ishiki's immense power like I'm theorizing? Have Momoshiki and Isshiki both inherited separate halves of Shibai's power and passed it down to Boruto and Kawaki? There are still many questions to be answered, and you can count on me to cover all of them once they're answered in the future of the story. Let me know all of your guys' thoughts in the comments below. This is Ghost, and I'll see you in the next video. Later.
俺は忍びだ。